I thought to myself, in the woods, if this is to be my last story.
And if Millisime Imperial is the last chapter, what would be the first?
I first met Claudio Zucca at the Essence 2023 event. An event so vile, so up itself, and so vacuous that it was one of the main reasons why I decided to quit fragrances and fragrance reviewing for a whole year. Whilst I did not enjoy that event, it was so fake and so depressing and so utterly out of touch with reality. One of the big things that stuck out, apart from meeting a lot of wonderful influencers that I hadn't met before, probably the main thing that actually stuck out to me was Claudio Zucca. As I roamed around the different podiums and the different setups and the different desks and the different pantomime sets that were put up for all of the different niche and independent fragrance brands, this quite skinny young kid comes up to me. He's quite tall, which is not particularly difficult when you're meeting me. And he was nervous, quite nervous actually. And he came up to me and Chris from Fragmental, and he looked at me and tensely said, "Would you like to try my fragrance?" And he was talking to me as if I was a somebody, and flattery will get you everywhere. But no, it wasn't just that. It was the fact that this young man was obviously nervous about this. He didn't have enough money to be able to rent one of the preposterous over-the-top, sets that they had. He was just on his own. And in some ways he had nothing to lose, but in some ways he had everything to lose. He handed me this bottle. It's not the bottle that we're talking about today, but you could tell that it was made on a low budget, but it wasn't cheap. Thought and intention and love had been put into the making of the bottle, and I thought that the fragrance was grandly original. It smelled like raspberry jam. I've talked about it previously, and I loved it. And I loved the fact that this guy had the balls to do that. It meant something to me, especially in this industry, which is so difficult, so up itself, so self-absorbed. There's not too many differences between the fragrance industry and the film industry and the TV industry, and you have to have a lot of cojones to make it in both. And I liked him. I just liked what he'd done. I appreciated it. And so we kept in touch. A few months later, he sent me Mineral Wood. And I knew it was special from the start. I knew that I loved it so much. But this was a time when my love for being the fragrance apprentice was truly waning. So maybe I'm a little bit late to the party. But I want to try to really tell you and to really signal to you that this is a fragrance that is worth your time. This is a high quality fragrance, and this is a fragrance that I truly love. And I think that it's a wonderful beginning, because in a way it is opposite of Millésime Impériale, but yet there are really sophisticated similarities to it. And I want to say something very clearly. His company doesn't have the most expensive packaging, not the most luxurious packaging. He didn't have a booth. He's very unknown. He's barely promoted, barely talked about in the fragrance community. But if Chanel had released this, or Creed, or Amouage, or Dior, or one of the main brands, you would never hear the fucking end of it. And that is a promise. All of your favourite influencers, everybody, would be talking about this fragrance. Especially, I think, particularly if Chanel had done it, or Creed, actually. I think if Creed had released this fragrance, oh man, you'd never hear the end of it. It's so unfortunate that in our world, when somebody doesn't have as strong of a brand, as strong of an image, and doesn't have a lot of resources, they are not given the right and proper opportunities to thrive. So I feel for Claudio Zucca, and I think that his fragrance is so wonderful. It speaks to me on a personal level. It grabs me emotionally. I think it's composited so beautifully that I'm doing my small part to help him thrive and to give this fragrance and to give that young man a solid opportunity. Who would like this fragrance? Who would like mineral wood? I think that I've gotten to a point in my journey where I can say that most of you who have followed me for a very long time, and have especially followed me for my summer fragrances, would generally like this. I think that one of my many unique selling points is that I'm not like the other fragrance reviewers who love their autumn and winter fragrances. Not that there's anything wrong with them. I love autumn and winter, but summer fragrances are the fragrances that brought me here, that brought me to the dance, if you will. I love summer fragrances. I have a real passion for them. No matter what happens, I'll still be wearing Chanel Allure Edition Blanche in my 50s and 60s and 70s. I'll still be wearing Creed Millésime Impériale. Hell, I'll still be wearing Tommy Hilfiger. These are the fragrances that really brought me into this. And if you are a fan of those kinds of fragrances as myself, then I think you could really enjoy this. One of the great things about this fragrance is that I think any agent can really wear this. You know, to me, this is the future of fragrances. And as I said in the introduction, I think that if any other mainstream company or big brand had released this fragrance, then I think that we'd all be talking about how wonderful and how genius and how forward-thinking it is. I think that if you're looking for innovative citrus fragrances that really... citrus fragrances that can push the boundaries of how they relate to sandalwood and how they can relate to cedarwood and woody tones in general, then I think you'd really appreciate this. I think that people who have a real love for citrus fragrances and masculine and mature citrus fragrances, there's nothing juvenile about this at all. This is a very mature, a very sincere, very confident fragrance. And if you're wanting something like that, I don't think it's really a complicated decision. You've got to try it out. And I think that this chap, this Claudio Zucca, is onto something. I've seen a lot of memes online recently about promised futures. Don't know if you've seen those things. These are futures, or the iconography of futures that were promised to different eras and different decades. For example, I'm a millennial, apparently. And chrome and blue and sky was the future that we were promised back in the late 90s and the early 2000s. But we certainly didn't get that. Nobody got the future that they thought they were going to get. And when I first smelt Chanel Allure Homme Sport all those years ago, I felt as though I was promised a future of citrus summer fragrances, laced with vanilla and woods. That didn't quite work out. Instead, what we got was either incredibly watered down citrusy nothingness, or very feminine, over-the-top sweet fragrances. But to me, Claudio Zucca's mineral wood is the promise of the future that I was never given. This is what I thought was going to happen. This is where I thought fragrances were going to go after I smelt Allure Homme Sport. This was the destination point that I was so very looking forward to. And even though it didn't happen in the mainstream, well, not really, it gives me great happiness that it's found its home in the niche world, or more specifically, in the independent world. To me, mineral wood is a vision of what was supposed to happen, of what fragrances should have been, but they weren't. This is a beautiful, intoxicating, yet quite simple composition. So the beginning is kind of like a Acqua di Parma-esque Italian citrus, neroli, orange, lemon peel. It's vibrant, it's wondrous, it's so carefree. And you could go along with that for a while, and it's particularly high quality, especially coming from an independent source. As things start to develop, there's kind of a floral edge, maybe even a green grassy sentiment. But then we hit the mineral wood, and to me the mineral specifically is salt. Himalayan salt, which is richer and deeper, and to my palate anyway. There is no table salt here. It has that marine citrus quality that of course I love in Millésime Impérial. But Millésime Impérial, as I've always said, is a very, very happy, go-lucky, fun times, idyllic, innocent fragrance. But this fragrance has a maturity, this fragrance is an adult. This fragrance has lost its innocence, but at the same time tried its best to retain it. A similarity to Allure Homme Edition Blanche, very much. That lemon is very strong and very bountiful. And then there's, of course, this lovely sort of, I don't know if it's vanilla, but there is a warming, ambery tone that brings everything together. And, of course, the white sandalwood spine that drives everything through. Like I said, it's simple, it's straightforward, but yet it's addictive. It's intoxicating. It's everything I love about citrus fragrances. It's everything I want from one. To me, this is a triumph of independent fragrance composition. Even as it dries down a little bit further, here's something that's interesting. I get a little bit of oud, specifically the vanilla oud from things like 24 Gold and Ragba by Lattafa. Those, classic commercial Arabian smells. Yes, as it goes from the citrus to the salt, to the mineral wood, all the way down to the amber and the vanilla, there is a little bite, a little crumpet of oudy, masculine dirtiness that's in there. And to me, that completes the composition. This, to me, still can be the future of summer fragrances, if we choose it to be. 5 stars. Well done, young man. The performance on this fragrance is solid. Projection is typical for a summer citrus fragrance, maybe even above average. I was hoping for a little bit more with that sea salty, minerally, woodsy tone. I thought I was going to get a bit more projection, but alas, it stuck to what it knows, which is being a citrus and summer fragrance, so one can't complain. I think that in the first 2 hours especially, you're going to get a very good scent bubble. People who come into your space are going to love it because it's an utterly delightful fragrance. Why wouldn't they? But as time goes along, it delves into the citrus curse. Now, citrus molecules in fragrance, they're smaller, and that means that they basically evaporate even quicker. So that is simply what happens here, which is a bit of a shame. Longevity, on the other hand, is above average. I'd say 8 to 10 hours, and that's very reasonable. You can't really ask for more with a fragrance such as this. As I said, I was hoping that the deeper and the darker elements and the salty tone that's in here was going to ground the fragrance, give me a little bit more. But in reality, maybe I'm just being greedy. Overall, quite an above average spring-summer fragrance performance. I'm going to give it 3 3/4 stars. So overall, I say to you, this is a wonderful fragrance, and this is coming from somebody who's smelt, well, probably too many fragrances in their lifetime, more than the average person, that's for sure. I love the scent, I love the story, and this fragrance genuinely gives me hope for better fragrances, and especially better spring and summer fragrances in the future. That candle was on the ground, about to go out, but this fragrance has resuscitated the flame of my love for summer and springtime fragrances. So, with that, and bearing in mind the projection longevity being, maybe it could have been better, I'm happy to give this 4 3/4 stars overall. A nearly perfect fragrance. Thank you, Claudio. I'll be in touch. I'm the Fragrance Apprentice. I'll see you soon.
Thank you to our wonderful Patreon gang members. And welcome to our new members, London Hoffman, John C., Adrian, and finally, S.